Hey guys, it's Kylie. I'm finally back from my Labor Day trip, which I guess if you didn't know I took a trip, now you do. And that means that I get to dive into some asks following the airing of The Dragon and the Wolf, otherwise known as the end of Game of Thrones Season 7. So let's dive on in. Oh, and also my podcast, Unabashed Book Snobbery. Julie and I are also going to be recording a open inbox hour for any asks that had been submitted to GOT Gifts and Musings or to our email, which is, I think, unabashedbooksnobs or unabashedbooksnobbery@gmail.com. Yikes, I should really know which one that is. But if you like hearing me answer questions, then you'll probably like hearing both of us answer questions in our podcast, and that's going to come out, I don't know, sometime next week. So, yeah, look out for that. And if you don't like these, then, okay. So, the TAC said to GOT Gifts and Musings, with Season 8 possibly / probably not airing before 2019, I think that's confirmed, do you think a longer gap between seasons could help the anti-GOT cause? With no new material, people might notice how bad the show's writing is when they rewatch seasons 5 to 7. Or will absence make the heart grow fonder? Statistically, more people become viewers in the off-season, so the longer the off-season is, the more viewers HBO is likely going to gain. Whether that means people are going to be treating this as something of quality, that remains to be seen. I think I'm not very positive that the length of the off-season is really going to change minds one way or the other, honestly. It's just going to give the people who want to come up with rationalizations more time to come up with rationalizations. Or maybe it's even going to make people go back and rewatch the early seasons and be like, oh, look at all this synergy, even though it's pretty much cheap fan servicey callbacks. So I would say it's probably going to help GOT more than it's going to help anti-GOT. At the same time, I don't really know what the anti-GOT cause is. Is it just getting everyone to admit that it's tripe? Because maybe there won't be a dearth of articles. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. I feel like critics all want to be liking this, and people who have, it's the sunk cost fallacy, but people who have engaged with it, want to still be really, really enjoying it. And I'll actually link a video called Falling Out of Love with Game of Thrones and sort of where people are coming from. I went through that 3 years ago, so the pain is not as acute as it is for others, but yeah, it's I don't know. Well, time will tell, but I have a feeling they'll gain more viewership, and Season 8 will have the highest numbers ever, or whatever. Anonymous said, don't you seriously get frustrated when you see George R. R. Martin saying reasonably nice things about the show when you really want him to put his foot down and say enough's enough? Do you think he's doing this out of respect for HBO, or is he just shying away from controversy? I sincerely cannot believe he thinks this is a good adaptation of his life's choice. I mean, I don't think he thinks it's a good adaptation. He's always saying the show is the show, the books are the books, and I think he's kind of entered the void with that. But do I get annoyed? I mean, I would fist pump if he, really tore into this, but I don't see that happening. At the end of the day, he's got other projects with HBO, and, I think he still wants his creative property to succeed, even if it's a glimmer of it. I don't know. I really try to, dial back Martin headcanons that I have, but I don't really get overly annoyed with him for any of this. At the end of the day, yeah, if I was a writer, I'd probably want visual adaptations of my work, too, and I probably wouldn't want to piss off HBO for that reason, and, just all the really weird George hating because he's taking a while to write his books. Let the guy do what he wants. We like his books, and just... actually in this regard, let the books be the books and the show be the show, and let just Martin worry about that without us, he doesn't tell us how we have to feel about Game of Thrones. Anonymous said, not since that single episode of The Big Bang Theory that I watched has a show run a mildly amusing to unfunny joke into the ground so aggressively to the point of stealing some of my capacity for laughter. Tormund makes unwanted advances at Brienne, Pod's dick, people say cock. Yep, the horse is beaten dead on this show. They have they remember what was funny, 2 or 3 seasons ago, and what people were talking about, and what the internet really liked Sandor's chicken jokes, so let's have him reference chicken again. And it's just such bad writing. It kind of reminds me of my 4-year-old niece, who if she gets a laugh from doing something once, she just does it over and over again, and there's just no restraint and no art. God, is Game of Thrones funnier than The Big Bang Theory, though? Because there's a lot of ironic enjoyment that I get out of it, and I think I'd rather... I don't know. Snakeview is funnier than anything I've ever seen on Big Bang Theory. I'm sorry you had to watch that episode, though. Anonymous said, don't know if you've been asked this before, but what are your favorite scenes in Game of Thrones? I'm not trying to be difficult. This is actually a really hard question for me to answer, because not that, oh, I can't say anything positive about the show, but it's like, I can't even consider the show on a Watsonian level anymore. I mean, if we're talking about older seasons, I can tell you scenes that I found effective. Joey and I are always talking about the added scene between Viserys and, Doria? What was the name of the sex worker they had? It was something like that, where he's in the tub with her and he's talking about the history of the dragons, and it's like really good characterization into Viserys, and a creative way of using the visual medium that isn't constrained by the close POVs of Martin. So, like, I found that scene effective. I found the scene where Sansa lied to the Vale Lords, but also told them who she was, but, covered for Littlefinger. I found that effective in season 4, right before she sashayed down the steps in her Darth Sansa outfit. Like things like that in isolation, but it's really difficult for me to look at. Even this past season, like, any of my favorite scenes would have just been for the memes. Like, I think it was really funny. There is a restricted section of the library and, things of that nature. So this isn't just, I'm not engaged. I'm not suspending my disbelief. So what's favorite becomes just sort of what makes me laugh. And that's probably not the best way to judge what a good scene is. Anonymous said, concerning Jon Snow's secret Targ name, that's not something original to the show. Several Song of Ice and Fire GOT fanfic writers have used that idea. Oh, totally. This is because I said, hey, the whole thing about Jon's Targ name, this doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This concept has been around. If you go on the Westeros.org boards and look at it, there's always people who are theorizing what it is. Oh, I think it was definitely Viserys and stuff of that nature. And it's just, the idea is, I don't know who started this secret Targ name thing. Who the hell even thinks Lyanna was naming? She's half dead. She's probably got bigger concerns right now than, but what do I call the baby? So, if there is a secret Targ name, okay, cool, that might give us a little bit insight into, I don't know, like, Rhaegar's prophecy seeking, or maybe how Lyanna felt about it. Maybe it's an assertively northern name, but Ned, didn't want to dishonor with someone who's going to be a bastard. I don't know. I don't know. What matters is that Ned promised her to take the baby, and he named the baby Jon because of Jon Arryn, and then he raised the baby as his own baby, and it caused a lot of issues in his arc, and that's why all of this matters. So, yeah. Sininyara said to GOT Gifts, I am confused about something. Was R plus L consensual? Like, in the books, is there evidence either way? We know that Robert believed it to be rape kidnapping, but his perspective was biased. However, I don't remember any evidence that disputes this interpretation or suggests that it went as far as marriage. Am I misremembering this as a D&D thing? There is some evidence, actually. I mean, consensual is difficult in this case because Lyanna was 15. And Rhaegar is in his 20s and a prince. So there's, like, a heavy, even if we're going to ignore, like, statutory laws because, values dissonance, there is a heavy, heavy, heavy power imbalance there. This is the prince. And she's just some kind of, like, hot-blooded 15-year-old, But, the idea that it was more consensual, most of that sort of relies on the, Night of the Laughing Tree story that Mira tells Bran. And sort of the implications out of it, that you get the feeling of Lyanna that she was sort of willful and impulsive, and there is a reason that Rhaegar would have been seeking her out in that case, because I totally 100% believe she was the Knight of the Laughing Tree. It doesn't make sense for it to be anyone else in that context. Small things like there are little hints along the way that was her too. We learned she's an excellent rider. We learned jousting's more about horseback riding, stuff like that. So, I mean, a lot of it's kind of fan fiction. Not fan fiction, but, like, fan theory. It's very, very speculative. We don't really know one way or the other. But another pretty big piece of this, too, is the way that Ned thinks about Rhaegar and his thoughts. And if Ned believed that his sister had been kidnapped and raped, the whole, like, oh, I don't think Rhaegar would be the type of guy frequenting brothels. I don't think he'd be, like, thinking of the dude too favorably. So, that's part of it. It's not just a show thing. Consensual, it's a relationship that I think has a lot of red flags, and in our legal system, yeah, it's statutory rape. Fandom and Science said, "Hi, after reading your blogs, people's fan theories, and getting a little confused with the direction of the show, I'm finally starting to read the books. Good. Only on A Clash of Kings, but I'm enjoying them. One thing that's annoying about the show, though, when Jon bent the knee after Daenerys agrees to fight him. It just doesn't make any sense, given how hard they fought for the North and his subjects' misgivings. He didn't even consult with any Northmen. Will it come back to haunt him? It better. I mean, I can't tell you whether it will or not, because if D&D don't want it to, it just won't. So it's completely up to what they think is going to be a dramatically satisfying plotline. Like, the Northern Lords suddenly were all into Sansa this year after she had, like, actually been running things. But, when she was sitting right there and was, as far as they knew, the only living legal heir to Winterfell right now, and the one that they should have been crowning Queen of the North, no one even looked at her. It was never even a possibility. It seemed like Sansa didn't even know she was the Lady of Winterfell until Jon said, "You're the Lady of Winterfell." Will it have consequences? It really, really fucking should. I mean, he sailed past the North twice in his stupid white capture voyage, and he didn't even stop in. He's been the king for like 2 days before he sat down and marched his face into another trap that Sansa said, "Hey, if you go down to Dragonstone, she could just take you prisoner." Guess what? She did. So I don't know. I don't even know why they crowned him. They just crowned him because Lyanna felt like it. Maybe it will have consequences. It should have consequences. Nothing ever really has consequences on this show, though, because whatever the hell D&D want to happen will just happen. So if I were writing it, yeah, it'd have consequences. We'll see what they think. The Anonymous said, "The Washington Post is implying one of the biggest GOT fan theories is that Bran is actually, via time-traveling mishaps and magical three-eyed raven wormholes, the Night's King. First of all, I've never heard of this. I guess in the show anything is possible, but is this a real wheel folks are spinning? And also, this is a theory that's been kicked around in A Song of Ice and Fire, because I feel like for the books it's even less likely 100% crack as opposed to the 78% crack in terms of the show likeliness in the end. I'm sure it's being kicked around for A Song of Ice and Fire just because a lot of Game of Thrones unfortunately bleeds over into A Song of Ice and Fire discourse now. But one of the most popular theories, no, not by a long shot. I mean, the most popular theory is R plus L equals J, and you can either take the show as confirmation or not. I barely even treat that as a theory. But then there's also stuff like, the Grand Northern Conspiracy, which has a lot more people subscribing to it than I would think Bran is the Night's King. These theories aren't new for Game of Thrones. They started coming out after the whole hold the door thing, because it's like, oh, Dark Bran and all that. But, no, they don't have... I'm pretty sure Howland Reed as the High Sparrow has more followers than this one, so I would not... No, Bran is not the Night's King. He's probably one of the heads of the dragon in the books, so we'll see. And I think he has a really important role, and it's not going to be... I don't even think there's going to be like a centralized bad guy in the books like this. We'll see, but yeah. Anonymous said, "What do you make of the deleted scene between Bran and Sansa, where Sansa asks Bran what to do when he reveals Littlefinger's schemes?" I don't make much of it. I mean, none of this actually makes sense. This means that Arya and Sansa were earnestly fighting. Arya was earnestly threatening Sansa's life, and Sansa decided that the only way to get Arya off her case was to execute the guy that she could have executed last season, probably should have executed last season, that she's had dirt on since he pushed her aunt out the moon's door. I mean, none of this... And then she just, I guess I just happen to know my brother can see all of time and space, even though when I asked him, hey, what does it mean to be the Three-Eyed Raven, he didn't explain it at all. But he knew about my rape, so therefore he must know about everything ever. And I feel like there's more that Littlefinger didn't tell me about my dad's murder. So let's just check. It's really stupid. And, I don't know if D&D even realized it would have been a better plotline for us to see all three Stark children scheming together to bring down Littlefinger, even though they didn't need to do that, but that still would have been a more engaging plotline than the bait and switch. Why were we put in the shoes of Littlefinger to, be surprised with him? It was so bad. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't make much of it other than the fact that D&D have a history of cutting the scenes that actually help the show make a modicum of sense or actually mean something. So, not a shock. Anyway, I'm already somehow almost at 15 minutes, so I'm gonna go, and thank you so much for sending all your asks in, and yeah, the Unabashed Book Snobbery episode is gonna be posted on thefandomentals.com, and I'm sure I'll be doing other videos like this in the future, so I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!